let me just say, number one, this is a great day. This is the kind of day you should be at the river, the beach, or a park. And what we want to do is make this river even more accessible to more Angelenos, especially when we start thinking and reimagining what a post-pandemic city is going to look like. The river should be up front because we need to be outside. We need to have activities that are part of this new post-pandemic urban space. And I think what the data that we are going to present to you indicate that Angelenos imagine a river and think of a river and are very supportive of this effort. If the vision of Los Angeles were a river with more parks, natural access, etc., would you like to visit the river? And of course, 85% said it was likely that they would. Basically, this question is saying that if we invest in the river, will you take advantage of it? And it's overwhelmingly yes. Next. Are you aware that there's a new county master plan? This is pretty impressive that 21% said yes. Now, that doesn't mean that they knew the plan, that they knew all of it, but they knew that there's discussion in the political, governmental, civic space about doing the river. And they may not be speaking specifically about the plan, but they've heard constantly about different aspects about it. Next. And a lot of my comments, in addition to giving you the data, is my interpretation of this. There could be multiple interpretations, and I would encourage people to have these multiple interpretations. The master plan includes many proposals. What would you like to see of the following? Again, a whole long list, very supportive of many of them. You'll get this data. Next.
In terms of my personal experience with the river, I think my experiences with the river are similar to the experiences that a lot of Angelenos have had. As a child, it was always something that you sort of went past, either on the bus or in a car, sometimes rode your bike past. You didn't really think much about it. I didn't think much about the history, didn't think much about its place in the city fabric. And it certainly was not something I ever thought about in terms of potential. As I started working in the nonprofit sector and got more involved in community sort of on my own, realized what a tremendous resource it was for the people in that community. When we talk about the river, we always talk about the future. We always talk about things that can happen with respect to recreation and all of those types of wonderful things. And I'm glad we're having those conversations. But I think it's important to remember how the tremendous amount of use it has already. But at the same time, while it's utilized, we also know that to a large extent, we could do better, that those resources could be improved, need to be improved, and could better, rather than sort of being an open wound, a border between communities, it can actually be a bridge and bring communities together.
Like many, I grew up in a Latino household, a Spanish-speaking household, and unlike the full data, I did not know there was a river, let alone visit the river. Growing up in Los Angeles, no more than 15 minutes from where we are today, in El Sereno, which is the city the neighborhood furthest east in the city of Los Angeles. And like many families, my family prioritized working, paying bills, putting food on the table. And we didn't know that we were part of environmental consciousness, but we were doing it, right? It was don't run the water because the water bill is going to be high. Or to beat the heat, we didn't have a pool, but my grandmother would let us play outside and water her garden and get us with the water hose. So we were practicing environmental consciousness and I didn't know it. And I believe that's really what instilled my passion for the environment. The river has gone through so many different phases of life, from its origins when our tribal ancestors cared for the river and only took what they needed. And then, LA got very densely populated. We had other settlers come. The river was then channelized because we built too closely to it. It's gone through a lot. And I grew up during the time when we neglected the river, which it sounds like, Fernando, so did you. So I consider that the 80s and 90s, I'll say, even early 2000s. But now there's a renewed interest and more people than ever know about the river. And that's what the poll is telling us. And there is a renewed interest and vigor to revitalize and care for our river.
So if I step back from RMC and I talk a little bit about what draws me to the river, it's really what draws me to, you know, the outdoors and just being outside, because my ancestors saw the outdoors as a way of survival, right? We didn't look at it as a way of recreation because we were actually trying to escape slavery. I actually didn't grow up here on the West Coast. I grew up on the East Coast. My relatives are from Dorchester County. Most of you probably will relate Dorchester County to Harriet Tubman, which we're all related to. And actually, I had members of my family who were escaped as part of the Underground Railroad. So we looked at the outdoors a little differently in the beginning because we were trying to escape, you know, this system that was, you know, was not good for us. So that's what brought me to looking at the environment, looking at what I can do to help people to understand that this is a valuable resource for us, and we need to make sure that we provide means to keep it and continue that value as a resource to people.